For our first awards tonight, joining me is NRCS Chief Matt Lohr. Matt, will you please join me here on the stage? Oh, there he is. Joining Matt on the stage are Mike Brown, Executive Director of the National Association of State Conservation Agencies. Also joining us is Astor and Mike, Also joining us is Astor Boozer, the NRCS Regional Conservationist for the West. Astor and Mike serve as co-chairs of the National Conservation Planning Partnership. Matt, take it away.
Well, good evening, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to say what a pleasure it's been to be a part of NACD this year. And thank you so much for your warm hospitality. And it's such a privilege for us on behalf of all of our NRCS employees to be a part of these awards tonight. Invoking the leadership and dedication of Hugh Hammond Bennett, the father of the modern soil conservation movement and the first chief of the Soil Conservation Service, now NRCS, the Hugh Hammond Bennett Awards for Conservation Excellence were established by the National Conservation Planning Partnership to recognize individuals at the local, state, and national level for extraordinary achievements in and contributions to the soil and water conservation movement in the United States. Criteria for the Bennett Award nominees include a commitment to conservation planning, pioneering new approaches to conservation planning, advancement of soil health adoption, and civic engagement. This year, the National Planning Partnership is recognizing the leadership of both producers and conservation planners with the Hugh Hammond Bennett Award. I'm pleased to announce the recipients of the Hugh Hammond Bennett Award for Conservation Excellence Producers are Bruce and Rick Rominger from Winters, California. The Rominger brothers have long been leaders in conservation planning on the farm and ranch lands that they own and operate. They were pioneers in the use of conservation tillage on their highly erodible land in the 1980s and enrolled hundreds of acres in the Conservation Reserve Program. They have implemented over 20 conservation practices to protect the natural resources on the land they operate, including water facilities on rangeland, stabilizing stream banks with the channel bank vegetation practice, fencing pipeline, and prescribed grazing. Cropland practices have included conservation tillage, tree and shrub establishment, micro-irrigation systems, irrigation water management, cover crops, and structures for wildlife and hedgerows. The Romingers are also in the process of closing an easement through the NRCS Agriculture Land Easement Program, protecting their land from development and placing hundreds of acres of rangeland in perpetuity. The Rominger brothers realized that if a world with a rapidly growing population is going to be fed, then the quality of the soils they manage must improve, whether by adding compost, utilizing crop residues, or by planting cover crops. The Romingers have worked to pioneer new approaches to conservation planning long before other farmers, financial incentives, and regulations were in place. The Romingers were at the forefront in the agricultural community of innovation and adaptability, not merely complying with regulations, but showing others the way to meet those regulations. Over the decades, they have provided leadership to the farming community through one-on-one interaction with other growers. Whenever the local NRCS or Yolo County RCD has a group coming in for a tour, the Rominger brothers are always more than willing to spend time explaining conservation is not just an add-on to their operation if they have the time, but an integral component in the overall operation. The Rominger brothers developed a conservation plan that specifies how the natural resources on the ranch are to be protected and are allowing for a profitable operation. Their conservation plans implemented throughout the decades have helped them become more resilient to even the greatest conservation challenges. Congratulations to the winners of the Hugh Hammond Bennett Award for Conservation Excellence Producers, Bruce and Rick Rominger.
Well, thank you very much for this honor. I'm really humbled to have my name and my family's name even mentioned with Hugh Hammond Bennett. And this honor, like he told you, he explained it very well, is not just for me, it's for our farm. My brother Rick is my partner. And I have today with me to help accept this award my wife Robin and my daughter Rachel and son John. And I have another son, Justin, who's back home on the farm still. I just want to say a few words. You kind of know what we do now, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. When I look back and wonder why my brother and I want to spend our time and our money, you know, developing wildlife habitat, planting hedgerows, building ponds to control erosion and recharge aquifers, or take time out to take a tour of somebody's, you know, some group around. We're only 15 miles from UC Davis, so we have professors and people out there all the time. Well, I think it really starts way back with my parents. I mean, my parents are really, they're definitely, if you aren't part of the solution, you are part of the problem kind of people. And, you know, I heard think globally, act locally when I was very young. So they set an example as people who get involved, you know, they pull their weight, they do things in their community, in our state, even nationally, to get things done. And when my oldest brother, Rick, started college, he joined the Sierra Club. Not too many farm kids joined the Sierra Club in 1972. So that introduced me a little bit to the environmental movement and what was going on out there in the world. And when I was in college at UC Davis, I picked up a book off a shelf in our bookstore called Topsoil and Civilization. How many people have ever heard of that book? Yeah, that's great. So anyway, that was written in 1955. Yeah, Tom Dale and Vernon Carter wrote that book and really opened my eyes to, you know, how damaging agriculture can be to a civilization, you know, including ours. It really humbled me. I thought, well, we're smarter than all those old civilizations. But then I looked around and I thought, man, we have these big old tractors. We just might wreck this place faster than anybody ever has. So anyway, after that, I read F.H. King's book about farmers for 40 centuries, how the successful places where they've been able to farm for 4,000 years on the same soil. And then my our middle brother Charlie, introduced me to the writings of Alan Savory and Aldo Leopold, and Aldo Leopold's one of my favorites. But those two guys really taught us about the interconnectedness of all the plants, animals, and soils. And there's others. We have a wonderful neighbor. We're lucky to have a guy named John Anderson, started Hedgerow Farms, and he grows native grass seed. He taught us about native plants. He taught us about restoring rangelands. A lot of our rangelands in California have been taken over by just these invasive annual grasses. Some of them aren't very good forage, so trying to improve that. And then, of course, we have a great district conservationist. Phil Hogan is a district conservationist in Yolo County, California, and you can't find more dedicated, hardworking, just a great guy, and we are really thankful that he is there with us. So now you know kind of why I ended up doing what I do and why my brother and I do these kind of things. But I know I'm preaching to the choir here, because you all have these kind of stories too. You have somebody that influenced you, somebody that educated you, somebody that gave you the passion to do what you do also. So all of us now have a job moving forward to be that inspiration, to be that education for the next generations. So I've got my work cut out for me here, so everybody else here, keep doing all the great work you're doing, and thank you very much for this award.